Awesome. So, I think the inspiration for this is that I've been hearing from different affiliates that challenge of capacity, which I think you all are familiar with. And it can be hard to do this work because it is so rooted in volunteers, in those community members, in the business owners who are so busy, in getting and convening that group of folks who can then make the work happen. And I was talking to Jack up in Dover Foxcroft a few weeks back, and for him, he was just talking about that ebb and flow of like, sometimes you've got this group that's really, energized and motivated and moving. And then sometimes, for different reasons, they disperse. And I think we all saw that certainly during the pandemic. But I wanted to, because of that, as well as in preparation for April, which is Volunteer Month, talk about how we can recognize volunteers, and knowing that with that volunteer recognition, that's one great way to then hold on to folks and retain the volunteers that you have, as well as spark new interest for folks. And I would love to just start out with like, what are ways that either you all have recognized your volunteers or seen other organizations or groups do it that you think is like worth sharing? What do you already do?
Well, I know that both we're only actually under the footprint of one chamber, but both the Lewiston Chamber and the Brunswick Chamber do very, very vibrant volunteer recognition stuff. They have annual awards for business leaders that do extra stuff. And those are really well done. Their annual dinners and all that stuff. Years ago, Positive Change Lisbon did a couple of volunteer nights, over a couple of years. And the town used to do an annual volunteer dinner where they recognized everybody, but it was every single person who ever volunteered anywhere. So,
wow.
By the end of the evening, it was, 150 certificates being handed out. And even the smallest of people, not small people, but,
right.
Every person got a certificate. And I think there's a balance between that and what the chambers do, where they pick 5 people in the community. You got to find somewhere in between to say, look, I've got this group of 10 people and they run this one event once a year, that's it. But I need to recognize those people, and I need to recognize the folks who are running the program the whole year. There's all of that balance.
There's a lot of layers of that volunteer commitment. Someone who might come by and help with one drive-by event, or stuff in envelopes and you never see them again. And then, those folks that are there constantly. What about you, Gemma or Cara?
Well, I don't know that we recognize our volunteers because, of course, we're extremely kind of new. And but I am pleased with the fact that there are 10 members of this collaborative group, and that there are more people who want to be members. So I think that there's definitely some energy and enthusiasm, which has helped with the funds that we've had from the grants that we've been awarded. So it just makes it a little more interesting if you can, for the volunteers, if there's, something to spend money on. But it is a stretch for everybody, particularly in a poor community. And so this definitely needs to be called out and recognized.
Yeah, awesome. Cara, I know you came with a question as well for this one, but what have you all done, or what have you seen done elsewhere that has been nice recognition?
Well, in the past, I just thought back a couple of days ago when I was thinking about this call. In the past, our founding board president, we did do, when her term ended, we did recognize her with a nice plaque. And I think at the time we weren't having in-person annual meetings because of the pandemic. Now we're having our first annual meeting in person it's Saturday night.
Oh my
so we're back in person on those. Yeah, I'm kind of excited about it. And ironically enough, our second board president has termed out, and we now have elected our third. And I'm trying to figure out a nice way to recognize her, because she sort of brought the organization to kind of the next level.
Yeah, so she's terming out.
She's terming out, but she still has she's staying on the board. And with our presidency, what we do is they're really president for 4 years. It's a 3-year term with 1 year past presidency, non-voting term or year,
Mhm.
and then they can continue on the board if they so wish. And Phyllis has been on the board, our past board president, but on the board since before we were organized as a 501c3. So trying to figure out how to be sure to recognize her on Saturday night. We've nominated her for a couple of awards. I don't know if both of you on this call know about this, but the Camden National Bank every year does the Leaders and Luminaries Award. And it's $5,000 for you. Everyone I think is shaking their heads. You guys all know about it, right? No. Every year, I think Camden National Bank does 5 different awards around the state. It's called Leaders and Luminaries, and it's an opportunity for boards to nominate leaders in their communities that have made an impact on their organization or just in their community in general. Every year since we've been around, I've nominated our board president, as that's usually the one that makes the most sense. So the one thing that's nice is all the writing is done for what I need to say on Saturday night.
Nice.
Try to produce as much information and stuff as possible. But and so that part's done, but I'm just trying to figure out, like, I don't have an award for Phyllis. I don't know, but that's here or there. But I was just thinking though, when all of you were talking, especially when I was hearing about what's going on up in Lisbon and how you guys recognize, I was thinking that maybe April, like a social media campaign, it would be great to sort of highlight those people on social media so people can match faces with names. And, we'll have a lot of posts that month, right?
Yes.
So
That's a great idea.
Yes,
so that
I
at least
love
could
that.
help a little bit. And I find too that pictures of people, and you guys probably all know this, but for social media for us, anytime we post up a picture of a person, it just goes, like, our social media channels just go.
Right. Pictures are huge. Yep.
Yeah. So the pictures specifically of people,
Yep.
what I find really helps us a lot. So
Yeah,
anyway.
absolutely. Chance for people to share it and tag it and say, we know this
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
And it's a great way
sorry,
also to draw in people when there's that recognition of, like, oh, I know so-and-so. I didn't realize they were volunteering, for Heart of Ellsworth, like, and that kind of piques some interest. What were you going to say, Ross?
Just on a really small level, I just remembered that I did these when I took the job. They're just little thank you cards.
Awesome.
And it just
Yes.
says, on behalf of the town, thank you very much. And when somebody does something that's just, a little handwritten thank you note for running an event or something, it's not public recognition, which I'd like to give them, but it is a little thank you. And I think it helps them feel appreciated.
And I
Ross,
think it's
that's
huge
awesome.
Yeah.
Sometimes I need a reminder of, like, the little things. So that was wonderful. Thank you.
Yes.
And that's easy to do. We could hand one out to every board member on Saturday night. Ross, that's a great idea. Seems so simple, but.
And you've got the town logo right on there. Like, it's so simply done, but
absolutely
tangible.
Why don't you buy something from, can you get something from Atlantic Glass for your board member?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, their stuff is so beautiful.
Yeah,
I know. And Phyllis loves their work, and it's a nice way to support Linda and Ken, who's no longer with us, but still very much.
Oh, isn't he? Is the business still going?
Yep. Going strong. Linda is his life partner. Linda is still running it. And she has, she's teaching college. Atlantic students are in her glass blowing studio all the time. And there's a lot of young, youthful energy in that building with Fogtown. So yeah, everything is going well there, all things considered.
And another idea I had, Cara, was a donation to someone. If there's another, like, nonprofit locally or cause that Phyllis is connected to, you could do a donation in her name. Something that we did for someone recently, and that it felt like a nice sentiment because it was, kind of carrying on something that they care about and also was in their name. So it allowed for that public recognition and internal feel good.
I like that. All of these things are very doable before tomorrow night.
Yeah, right. And I was like, you don't have to do anything but contact the place and make your own certificate, or maybe they can come, too, as part of the recognition.
Just to remind folks, I don't know if you realize, but I was a member of the Maine Commission for Community Service for a couple of years, and they do a course on volunteer management. I believe it's still online. I can't remember when I did it. I think it was some in person and some online. But it's a great course and it talks about structure and it talks about all sorts of things. I believe it touches on recognition as well, but it's a good course. It's the Maine Commission for Community Service, which I think is at volunteermaine.gov.
Yes, that's great.
Just an opportunity to learn more.
How many volunteers? How many volunteers do you have, Russ?
Me, technically 0, but I've got a group in town called Positive Change Lisbon, which probably has a board of 7, and then there's another group that's got a board of 6, and so there are these different groups in town that are sort of working with me to make things happen. And they're, and then of course every event has a handful of volunteers that come out and help out. So I would say in the 40-50 range by the time we get all the people counted.
Great. So I'm going to actually also share some screen here because I also did a little legwork to just come up with some different creative ideas that are out there. And this will help, I think, us spur some other ideas. And something that you, Cara, you mentioned is that social campaign. And let's see, are you all just seeing these? It's a PowerPoint slides, but
perfect.
I've got a bunch on my desktop. But something MDC wants to do, which I'll get to at the end, is acknowledge all of your work and your volunteers. So at the end of this, but I'll plug it now, is we'd love a photo of those faces of your board, your committee, whoever it is that you feel like is this group that you could honor and help us honor as these affiliate leaders in the downtown. But we, let's see, make sure I'm on this. Doing here. Sorry, it's not actually moving. Oh, there we go. Okay, so as you know, we talked about, like, volunteers are so critical to this work because that's what this program is based on, and they can provide significant work that is unpaid. And so for small nonprofits or committees that aren't even quite an entity yet, it is the juice that really makes it all happen, especially considering the relationships that Main Street affiliate work is really hinging on, relationships with business owners, relationship with community members, with the city, et cetera. And volunteers found this stat through I think it was through Maine.gov. Actually, now I'm forgetting my source. I think it was that 60 volunteers are 60% more likely to donate as well if they're engaged and involved, rather than someone who is, totally uninvolved and maybe just getting an appeal. So I grabbed some different ideas, and I tried to make these ideas like low-hanging fruit, low cost, low barrier. They kind of ascend to some volunteer recognition that is a little more involved, like an annual dinner. But there's easy ways we can do this, especially if you're, single staff in a municipality. You're not going to be organizing a huge, annual dinner necessarily, but a social post is a great way to, like Cara said, get those faces, smiling faces, ideally, of whoever it is who's doing this work. As a post on, whatever platforms you're on, Facebook, Instagram, et cetera, and even print it out and tape it to your door, or, tape it somewhere that's going to be a public place so folks can see that, this is a group that's doing some volunteer work, and it's a way to show that appreciation. And then similarly, for a social campaign that might be, a little more involved, is just doing a quick film, a quick video on your phone, or have someone do it on whatever equipment you've got available, and it could be of you saying a thank you to your volunteers. I think that's really accessible to people right now, and people enjoy that, whether it's scrolling through Facebook or wherever, or Instagram, wherever it is, like a short little video is a nice consumable piece of saying thank you. And if you wanted to take a step further, or you even had a volunteer who might want to help you work on it, you could even get some clips and put them all together of some different business owners in the downtown or groups in the downtown saying, hey, thank you. We really, appreciate this work that you're doing to keep this area vibrant. Maybe your downtown leaders could do that for you, Ross, but handwritten notes, as you mentioned, Ross, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's, again, a nice to have just a stack of those notes that have your logo or a photo of the downtown or something that brings that branding back to what your group is doing, your organization is, and doing those handwritten notes that can be super brief and super meaningful and like tangible. And then, of course, throw a party. And some tips that came up around throwing a party, like the dinners, Ross, I think you were mentioning, is that community-wide dinner, I think, is really a really cool idea. I had never considered that. I've seen them within an organization of these are our volunteers, but having it community-wide of like, you all are the people who are like contributing to this town is I would imagine just be meaningful to be a part of. But another tip that came with throwing a party is invite the volunteers' families, because we know that, volunteers are giving not only their time, but also in a sense, like it impacts the entire family of the time that they're giving. So if they have kids or if they have a partner, it's a great way to increase and really like wrap your arms around that like feeling of community that I think people look for in volunteering. Typically people want to be a part of something. And so when you're, I think really opening arms to this person's family, it really just helps increase that feeling of like, oh, like this is my place, or like this is why I'm doing this, because of this connectivity. And, as you all had mentioned, like, what are some gifts from different downtowns? Like Gemma, you mentioned Atlantic Glass, or can you showcase a business by having your annual meeting at the Steamy Buddha, perhaps, Cara? Great way to partner with those local businesses. And then another creative idea that also felt like relatively low barrier was partnering with the downtown business and say, like, throughout April, or maybe it's just like the first week in April to kick off volunteer week, or whenever you might be able to, coordinate it. What's a way you could coordinate with a downtown business and either get like discounted tickets to like a show at the Grand, or, a movie theater that's in the downtown, or promote some downtown business so that you're sending folks there. They're maybe giving that discount to help you honor the volunteers. And you can give them some special certificate that, hey, for this week, we want to thank you and your family, perhaps, and you do some kind of collaborative with a downtown business. It could be that it's like, free coffee, half price lattes, something at a coffee shop that you think, might have the ability to do that. Obviously, you're all sensitive at times to asking downtown businesses to discount things because we want them to be successful. But if there's a business where you think, I think the foot traffic is going to really, increase sales for them, or they're a partner and they're kind of willing to do this kind of work. Similarly, like, coffee or lunch discount, or brunch at that matter. If there's a cafe that wants to help you out with that, or when they go into the cafe, volunteers get a free one piece of a meal or something like that. So again, it's still helping that business, but it's also a way to recognize volunteers. And I think those are ways that you can recognize a big group, right? It doesn't, like handwritten notes, like they do take time, everyone, but this would be that coordination time, printing off of certificates, and then you could have a pretty big stack and be able to hand them out to a big number of people. And then, yeah, annual meeting, which has come up, of course, and there could be a simple, like, just sticker kind of marker or something that indicates on the name tag, like, you know, I'm a volunteer. And then maybe there's a different color of like, I'm a board member, or I'm a committee member, or, you know, different ways to kind of acknowledge the different roles people are playing. Since we'd mentioned, like, there's different layers to people volunteering and the amount of time that they're contributing. You know, a special, like, even star for, like, this was a founding, you know, member or volunteer. And then, you know, Ross mentioned the, like, volunteer of the year kind of, you know, annual award. And that can be a great way to acknowledge those people that are going above and beyond. When I've run these at past organizations, I did always find there were always like a few for like different reasons that it was hard to choose. And so I think that can be the tricky part of just like one annual volunteer. Because you want to, you know, it's like, well, really, I don't want to value this person's work over this person's, because their time has been similar. They've shared skills. They've just been very different skills, or, you know, so maybe you have a three a year, you know, or, you know, Ross, as you were mentioning, ways to find, you know, acknowledging many at one time. Could be this list of volunteer names in maybe the event program, or if you're not doing an annual meeting, you take out, you know, an ad in the paper and list a whole, you know, all the names of the volunteers for your organization for a year. Or it could be in your own, you know, not thinking of the word, but like whatever it is you're producing in terms of, like, if it's a annual newsletter or something of the like, being able to just write out all those names. That takes tracking, right? Like that I think it sounds easier than it is in action, just because it does take that accurate tracking, because the last thing you want to do is leave someone off who says, hey, I helped with that event, or I helped with that organization.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah, so I know actually, Cara and I were just talking about the camp where I used to work up in her neck of the woods, and that was something that was always a goal of ours to get to. But the annual track or the volunteer tracking was never quite there. And actually, I know that just the last couple of years they started doing that, and it's really profound because they list all the donors, and then on the next page or two they list all the volunteers. So if there is, you know, the capacity, I know Delilah down in Biddeford has said, like, when she's able to have like a Vista member, that is that's something that's usually their responsibility. So if you can find the capacity somewhere, that, you know, can be a nice way to honor all those names. But what else? Anything spurred from this last kind of list of ideas?
Nothing new. I'm just suddenly motivated to do something in April, and I'm going to figure out what it's going to be. Right.
Yes, I love that. That's the idea. So, and let's see. So funny. It's like it falls asleep and doesn't want me. There we go. Oh yeah. Okay. And so something that I used to do a lot with actually staff at this camp, and it's just as good for volunteers, is small silly things like this, where, you know, again, if you need to recognize a whole big group of people, can you buy a ton of lifesavers, you know, low cost, and put a little, you know, print off a bunch of little stickers, or, you know, just little tags that say you've been a lifesaver, like, thanks for your time, thanks for volunteering. If you're doing it maybe for, you know, for the board or for a committee that's a smaller group, do you have it in the budget, or can you build it in for next year that, like, you know, certain time of year you do buy everyone like a latte, you know, and use a pun. I love you a latte, or appreciate you a latte. Donuts, we don't know what we would do without you. Have those at a meeting as just a, you know, even if they're the little donut holes. Something that, you know, just brings a smile to people's face. And I think that those tangible appreciations are always appreciated. And there's some others on here, lots of mint puns. Thank you for your investment or commitment. You can put them on a little pack of mints. So yeah, I hope this, also just spur some ideas of small ways that you could have, a handful, even a mixture of these out on the table at your next committee meeting. Or Ross, maybe as, Positive Change Lisbon gets going. That's something that's out there on the first
Right.
day.
Right.
And what else was I just thinking? Oh, even at at the annual awards, it could be something even similar, the mints out in the middle of the table as a nice gesture that also has this fun little message with it. Because the reality is you're grateful to everyone who's at that annual awards dinner and a part of your community and your efforts. Awesome. So this is the last slide. And again, we would love to get, and I'll set a deadline for this because we're far enough out that there's no rush. But if you, after this meeting, think, oh yeah, I've got a great photo, let's use this one. If you don't have a photo yet of your group of committee members, board, volunteers, however you might want to acknowledge folks, try to take one in the next month and email it to me, because we would love to. Similarly, I don't know if you all saw how we did our the paid Main Street directors and our 2 paid affiliate directors as well. Cara, you were on there. It was a recognition of the paid downtown directors who were doing this work, and that was something that Main Street America initiated, that we wanted to carry in Maine and make that acknowledgement. So similarly, we want to do something in April that acknowledges the work of all of you and your volunteers.
It was a very sweet surprise to see that.
Oh.
I hope I commented because it was, I'll tell you, this is just a side note, but I don't know what it is, but I'm like one of those people that believes the universe provides. Every single time there's something that happens that's a statewide initiation, sort of from MDF, just like this phone call, it always seems to be perfectly timed with whatever it is that's going on with us.
Wow.
And I know that it probably is the same for others, I would imagine, but it's just like, it was like that photo, for example, kind of came on a particularly rough day, and I was like, oh, it's very sweet. So
I love that. I'm so
cool.
glad. And that's it. Like, that's the impact that something, like so relatively simple.
Oh yeah, but time consuming.
Little time, small in comparison to the work and time you all put into this. So, yeah. So, and then, so please do, get your wheels turning on, like, I'm going to send a photo to Sylvie sometime this next month, and I'll send you a reminder with a deadline. And then what is, Ross, I know, I love, that you said your brain's spinning, like, these are great reminders, right? Like, probably nothing in here you haven't heard of before. But anything that is feeling like it's like, oh yeah, that's a takeaway that I think is really realistic for acknowledgement.
Yeah, I will say that the slide that you put up with all the little puns is perfect, because yeah, I now feel like ready for our annual meeting tomorrow night, which I have a bunch of things that I didn't know I had to do.
Yeah, right. Oh, love that.
Yeah, no, it's great, because as all of us are, leaders in our communities, it's so often that we're the ones leading. It's sometimes so lovely to either be told or reminded what to do.
Awesome.
Because we're always the ones that are kind of trying to move the ball forward, and people look to us for these sorts of things, but we don't always, have the capacity to think about everything. So,
well, that's it. And just like that list of volunteer names, like, that sounds so simple. And yeah, I know that I was at an organization with a good solid team, in terms of capacity, and we couldn't get it done. And, it took years and years and years of like, we would want to do that. So these things are, sometimes, just easier said than done, but also have that really big impact. So, and this is, that I think that's another piece of the magic of this group, Affiliate Main Street, is that it is all, so sharing. There's other folks that are doing it, or wondering the same thing, or, have ideas and solutions to whatever the conundrum is. So We gotta rely on each other.
Yep.
How about you, Jim or Ross? Any takeaways? You're like, this will be the one, or?
No, I'm still percolating. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna take a while to figure out, because it's do you do it with Positive Change Lisbon, or do you, I just thought, what if I created a Google form and I send it out to the community to say, please tell us who your volunteers are. And then maybe, that'll include churches, it'll include Boy Scouts. I'll get everybody, which is
Yeah.
great, but then I have 1,000 names, and how do you recognize 1,000 names, right? So,
Right.
that's where it gets challenging, but if it's all social media, it might be easier than you think.
Yeah, and if you can also have those partners help.
Right.
Yeah, not just
And
generate.
maybe I'm soliciting nominations for volunteers that we can recognize during April. And
Ooh.
one day during, every day during
Yes.
April, I'm putting out 30 volunteers in our community that do something different.
That's
So
a great idea. And
maybe
then you're also honoring those nonprofits that have these volunteers active in them.
Right. So, it's a good way to get connected to some of those nonprofits I may not have my fingers in yet, which is good too. So it's,
Totally.
just by soliciting this information.
Totally.
It could get bigger than I want.
Yeah, right.
That's always
You
the
let the big
danger.
ideas go,
Yeah.
and then you can shave them
Yeah.
down to reality.
I think that actually we already produced a card to thank people for a festival and New Year, and so that just reminded me that we're trying to sort of work on festivals here. So it just reminded me that that's a good idea to sort of thank people who are involved in doing the fundraising. But I also like the party idea, particularly this time of year, and so the get together and the sort of sharing, often over food. So that sounds like something. I think the photo of the board is a good idea, so I'll bring that up at our March I think first meeting, and we'll have some hopefully I'll bring a camera or ask someone to bring a camera. We have this new website that we were working on, so that we can get that photo also on the website, so it can be visual. So yeah, it's a good session, and I hope that Chantel and I are probably going to dovetail on these monthly meetings.
Awesome.
And I've actually got to go now, but thanks a lot, and have a great day, everybody.
Thanks for
See you,
popping on,
Gemma.
Gemma. Good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Bye, Gemma.
Cool. And so we got a smaller session here, and that was the focus of it. So if there's anything else you all got, ideas or questions, even if they're unrelated, feel free, but we can also close out early.
No, I'm good. I got a ton of stuff to do today, so I appreciate the early close.
Yeah, awesome.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It's great ideas, and I needed another ball to juggle. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Ross.
No, it's a good one. It's a good one. I'm looking forward to it.
It
Thanks
is.
again.
I'll send you slides, and I took notes of everything you all suggested too, and send those out.
Thanks. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
How about
Hey.
you, Cara?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Can you stop the recording?